Thanks, Dale, and thanks for having me a part of today. I always love coming along and talking to club people and sharing some knowledge and giving back a little bit as well. It's nice to see some familiar faces in the audience that have helped us along the way with some of our research. So I'm actually going to be talking more about injury prevention as opposed to management, but they're obviously very closely linked. My main kind of full-time job at the moment is leading a research program in knee and concussion injury prevention, a little bit of management in women's Australian football. And I also wear a few other hats, or have worn a few other hats that I think give me a different perspective to this topic as well. And VAFA very kindly supported an application that I was successful in gaining some funding from the government to continue some of this work. So I think the reason why I reached out to VAFA was kind of what Dale was touching on in terms of just alignment with those values of just trying to provide best practice is where we sit to the women and the girls. Everything I talk about today, it will have a bit of a women and girls focus, but a lot of the injury prevention principles have been informed by research in men and boys, so they actually apply for men and boys as well. So really, I just wanted to picture it like, what can you do to enhance the health and safety of players at your club? And concussion is at the forefront of a lot of the media at the moment, and that's where a lot of my research is sitting. But just broadly, like, I guess you want to ask yourself, or the people that you have at the club, are you implementing best practice exercise-based injury prevention programs and coaching strategies? So just, have a little bit of a ponder about that and whether you know the answer to that, and hopefully I might be able to push you in the right direction today. And then the other part of it, I think, is that coming back to that cultural piece, so providing an environment that promotes safe and healthy behaviours as well. So that might be, making sure you do have the experts or the professionals in there to support, but also creating a culture that it's okay to report as well, whether that be concussion or another injury, and that it's okay if they can't get up for that weekend as well. So a big piece of work over the last few years has been developing an injury prevention program. It's called Prep to Play. It's on the AFL Play website. So briefly, it's a warm-up. It gives you like a nice structure to your warm-up. It's kind of 8 to 10 activities that you can go through. You're probably doing a lot of these things already, but if you need some guidance of giving yourself a nice structure, then there's a nice resource there. You can give the ownership to some of your players to run through it. There's nice videos as well to kind of show you the activities. We have a really big focus on football skills, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit more, and focused on including some contact drills at training. A strength program, so getting rid of your long, slow jog around the oval, or sit around at the end of training and do some hip flexor stretching, replacing that with some strengthening exercises, some Nordics, reverse Nordics, is going to be really valuable for your team rather than stretching. There's more evidence behind this stuff. I'm sure you're going to have soft tissues, quads and hammies throughout the season. If they can maintain that throughout the season, not just, loading up and getting strong and fit in pre-season, actually maintaining that throughout the season is really important. And it's often, these exercises are very different to normal gym programs that the players might be doing outside, that they might be doing heavy weights and things. But the Nordics, you need a partner to do, so they're best to do at training, and they're really high load eccentric stuff. So they're actually better done on your training night, because that's when you're doing your kicking, your high speed running and everything. So if you can actually tack them onto training, then they do their slower, heavier stuff on their off days, then that can actually help with their recovery as well. So point people in the direction of these resources is probably the number one thing to do and take away. We are offering like services as well to come down to clubs and running workshops to help your players and your coaches or your trainers go through the Prep to Play program. So I'll put a slide up later about that. You could create a shared folder of resources. We could also, get them up on the portal as well, where you can, players and trainers can access those. Maybe it's a new coach thing that any new coaches come through. Are you aware of these injury prevention strategies? You could create a bit of a checklist, and just having it as I guess actually in your mind when you're planning the pre-season as well, that if you can put any of this stuff into your pre-season, I know it's a busy period, having it as an agenda item. please do get in contact if you think that we could help you run a workshop at your club. So normally we would, either do like one where it's up to 20 participants. So that could be coaches, trainers, staff, player leaders, and you come together and we do like it's 15-minute rotations, warm up, tackling, ground balls, the strength stuff, and rotate around. Not too much like lecturing or anything. It's very hands-on, practical, showing. And we also do one-to-one like team support visits as well. This is just a little bit of the journey. So we started the work in 2017, and then we've done a lot of work co-designing it. We did a big clinical trial, which some of the VAFA teams were involved with, to test whether Prep to Play can we get people using it, and does it reduce knee and head injuries, which I'll share some of the early findings today. And then we're actually scaling up. So with some of the leagues around Victoria and in Queensland, we're going and run league-wide workshops rather than going to like individual clubs, to see how that kind of scale up works. So a little bit of myth busting. Are injuries just a part of footy? Or actually, if you do these programs, you can reduce ACL injuries by 40 to 60%. So that's like studies of thousands and thousands of people all over the world that they've done individual studies, and they compiled the data, and can also reduce some of the other muscle strains and ligament sprains, and a little bit of early evidence to doing some core, some neck strengthening. These types of activities can also help with some of the concussion prevention as well, amongst other things. We had a lot of people involved in the co-design process over those few years, and you can see here we've included other evidence-based programs, so that's where some of the boys' evidence comes in. So even though it's very much branded at the moment, we probably need to do some new imagery to include some men and boys. It's for everyone, all ages and sex and genders. The problem is these resources probably sit online, and either you're not aware of them or not really quite sure how to use them. And this is the feedback that we've got from real coaches, that, resources are great, but I still don't feel confident to, look at the poster and be like, oh yeah, I can go and do this. So that's where I think that practical training has come in. So this is our trial. We were basically comparing the online resources to this kind of workshop model, where we'd go out to teams, provide some education, some practical training, and have a discussion. And the results of that were, I won't bore you with this research stuff, but we did have a lot of teams. We had 165 teams across Victoria involved in this study. So it was a massive undertaking in a very COVID-interrupted 2021 season that was only kind of 9 games. It was bringing back PTSD just talking about it. But we did get it, thanks to a lot of the leagues and the clubs. We did complete the study, but it kind of did limit our data in terms of how many injuries happened in that kind of first year. And we had over 2,700 players consent to be in the study as well. So this was just, as you can see, under 16, 18 and senior women. And eventually, so across the 2 years, everyone got one of those workshops. So it wasn't this, half got it and the other half didn't. Eventually, everyone got it, and we compared kind of the before and after. So that supported intervention of providing the workshop did increase the team's use of the program by threefold. So, the support works. The online resources was probably enough for some people, but most coaches needing that little bit of support. This is the injury data. Maybe just take notice of that last column. So concussion, we grouped together suspected and confirmed concussions. So confirmed being like medically confirmed. We had a 48% reduction, 42% reduction in concussion, 34% but not statistically significant in knees and ACLs, just because of that reduced data in that first season. And then there was a natural trend of like kind of time. With time, injuries reduced across 2021 and 2022. And I think, first season back from COVID, we had a spike of injuries at the start of that year we saw in our data. So that kind of did this weird thing with time. Anyway, I won't bore you with the statistical stuff, but the data is kind of quite fragile. So good trends to show that it's like being reduced, but when we kind of add some other things into the model, it dissipates that effect a little bit. Apart from the injury prevention effects, there's lots of other reasons why coaches kind of liked the program, and this is how we kind of, I guess, almost sell it a little bit, is that yes, it might prevent injury, but it does make you look really organised if you've got this structured warm-up. We try and make it kind of partner-based and fun. It provides a bit of a social opportunity and ownership of the players to kind of take it on. If you can get in your club and it's a common language and culture, it becomes easier for you as a coach to implement it, because it's just kind of, that's what's what's done. And we're doing the AFL branded program. You know, players understanding their bodies, improving their confidence, some of that muscle strength stuff, reducing muscle soreness, and improving performance. There's lots of benefits. We are doing the AFL Vic coaching forum at the MCG on March 1st and 2nd. So if you haven't heard about that, have a look. That's obviously more for coaches. So maybe just like distribute that information and, sign up to the Prep to Play workshop. And that's where we'll be like doing more of the practical and showing coaches how to use the program. Just a little bit on, so we're doing a little bit more concussion work at the moment, video analysis say AFLW, looking at all the sighted head impacts from the spotters, the medical spotters that sit on the side of the ground. So there was, in season 7 and 8, there were 488 of those events. 43 of those were resulted in a concussion. And then you can see the breakdown there, the most prevalent being during a tackle, and actually it's the ball carrier, in most cases during the tackle, that's sustaining that head impact. And then we've got ground ball and aerial contest after that, and bumping. And so you can see, 6.3 head impacts per 1,000 tackles. So, there's a lot of tackles that occur, and in 1,000 tackles, there's going to be 6 head impacts. So, it just puts it into perspective a little bit. There's a lot of focus on concussion. We're doing okay, like it's there, but it's also not happening every single tackle either. So I'll put up a little bit of information now in terms of like the role of clubs and coaches and players. So these are some of the things and trends that I'm seeing on the ground, working with under 18 girls in the Falcons program, and also just from the videos and watching a lot of head impacts. So if you're coaching the tackling event, we really need to coach the tackler and the ball carrier. I think sometimes we probably, get focused on, how do you position yourself for the tackle, but it's actually the ball carrier that's the one sustaining the injury more often than not. And whilst that might be because of the way that they've been tackled by the tackler, often there are things that the ball carrier can do themselves when they've been tackled to protect themselves. So it's onus on both. So both players needing to like stay low, stay active in the tackle, drive their legs, and take to ground if necessary. I think is if you can keep driving and stop the player what they're trying to do by just keeping them upright, then maybe we need to start coaching that. There's not enough evidence at the moment to be guiding coaches and clubs and teams exactly what to do in training. There's an article in The Age this morning, I don't know if anyone's seen that, a lot of backlash from AFL clubs of, what should we be doing? Because there's been a lot of concussions in training in AFL men's pre-season. And the data's just not there yet, but that's why a lot of this work is being done to understand, well, actually, how are they happening and what's the lowest hanging fruit for clubs to be focusing on. Obviously, no dump tackling, coaching in a way that promotes health and safety, trying to redefine some of that, what's tough, what is courage, because I think sometimes that can come across, especially in the women and girls, that they're wanting to prove that they can play this contact sport, and sometimes if you combine that lower skill and exposure with high aggression, that is where you've got that recipe for injury as well. So just focusing on some of those education points as well as the actual practical training as well. There's a nice duty of care video on the AFL website that we put together to kind of try and get some of those messages through as well. So please do share those resources. The other really good resource that's just been released by the AFL is the tackle curriculum. So that gives you the Prep to Play resources. Have got some tackling, ground ball drills, and just important technique cues. So for players that are new to the game, send them to them, have a look at this. These are the things you should be thinking about with these skills. And then there's some new drills that the AFL have put together, and they've got really nice laid out for different age groups as well, if you're involved with juniors at all as well. Ground balls, I think sometimes we often use the don't lead with your head, don't put your head there. What does that actually mean? So trying to play around with different cues, the one that I use is no snatching with the arms. The basketballs and the netballs, they just kind of that's what they get taught to kind of do. And so if you do with your arms, then your head is connected. So that's why the head follows all of the time. So they're often like, oh, I can just snatch that ball. So, play around with whatever cues work for you. Aerial stuff, not as common, not much of it as an aerial game in the AFLW, but it's getting there. And I think that's a lot about, positioning and approach to that aerial contest and not just being like a sitting duck under the contest, and trying at all times to kind of make sure you're going back up again towards the ball is going to be the safest. We're not going to take away the, getting to the contest late and, lunging for the ball and coming in from the side. That's the competitiveness that comes out in players at times. But as much as possible, you want to approach them getting there early and then coming back up at the ball. This is just our intense coding window with the videos. So we're looking a lot at like the technique in the tackles and the ground balls, everything as well. And we're getting like coaches and players to rate the preventability. So we can go, well, these are the ones we think are actually quite preventable. And they might form a good like education tool in the future. So if you are interested in getting involved in looking at a heap of videos of head impacts and helping us grade whether you think they're preventable or not, then please do get in contact. We're also going to be recruiting this year for people to share their experiences and knowledge and attitudes towards the current AFL concussion guidelines. This is a project with the AFL and Department of Health. They've obviously changed in the last couple of years, so getting people's experience with them and how to apply them, we think is going to be really important to kind of support clubs in moving forward. That's the email again if you want to get in contact about workshops. And then, some of the stuff I'm going to be doing in the future with VAFA is doing like a pre-season gala day, so almost like a combine testing for the men and women and comparing them against some of the like physical profiles of elite players, having some guest speakers alongside that, and some opportunity for some clubs to receive some free kind of support with injury prevention. Anyone who's had a knee injury, we're also very much doing lots of knee injury research as well. We've got a national registry going to kind of try and understand people in the public and private system and how they manage whether they have surgery or not, and understand their longer term outcomes. I will stick around after the session, so if people have got questions or want to talk about any of that stuff, always happy to chat and always happy to receive an email or have a chat on the phone as well. So appreciate your time. Thanks.